All right. Hey, traders. TG Watkins here. How's it going out there? So, busy morning. We had quite a few things down. We have FOMC later today, so we should be of interest to see what happens on that for that situation. And then we had Google report earnings, and that dropped the market on a few things. So, Mary, thanks. Looks like you're good to go in the Moxie room, and also on should be YouTube, Facebook, and I think we're also on Twitter as well. But yeah, so pretty active this morning. I'll show you also the IWM. So one thing I want to do is bring you guys to down here. Let's see, where was it? I've been posting quite a bit there. So we took a poll asking if the IWM was going to, go up or go down, flag into the hourly 50, or need to do a double bottom, kind of like Airbnb. So if you guys want to look at this one, you can kind of see the difference. And there's a chance that it might do both. So let me then bring you guys over to this chart. We can kind of talk about it for a little bit. And if we look at the IWM, so what it did, I think it was not yesterday, but the day before, so Monday, is we flagged into the 50 and moved up like this, and we did get a Moxie price trigger. Okay, so normally what I would be expecting from this point is to basically see price continue to stay over the hourly 50 and generally trend up. You want to see the daily 8 stay over the 21 and all that kind of stuff and continue to move up. But there's a sneaking suspicion in the back of my brain that this could have been a move, but we still might need a pullback, and that might then set up some divergence. So part of the issue that I had with this and why I put the poll out and was wondering about it is because it did look like price was going to go sideways, flag, and go up. However, we didn't really get any divergence, and the price basically went up, and the Moxie indicator kind of went up, and so the reason I usually look for divergences is because that's how the market confirms things and actually looks for strength. And as I said, confirms double bottoms and stuff like that. And so I'm just putting it out there that if the market still happens to come back down and it does come down like this, maybe it goes to this level. We're not sure. I'm just kind of pointing out some levels. If it comes there, then that would probably bring the Moxie indicator down to about here. And then let's just say if it does recover from there, from the double bottom, that would then have the Moxie indicator up like that. And there is your divergence. Because at that point, you would basically get price doing a double bottom, the Moxie indicator would put in a higher low, and now you have your divergence. And that might actually be maybe, I don't know, something like the second test. So double bottom off of the daily 50. And so I'm gonna see if that happens. And part of the reason I'm wondering if that is going to happen is because just the Nasdaq's pulling down hard because all the Magnificent Seven and Amazon, Google are getting hit pretty hard today, and so they could probably use a bit of a refresh. And the S&P is very extended; it could use a bit of a refresh. And I don't know what world that could exist where the IWM basically holds steady while the other indices pull back. So if the SPY and the NASDAQ need to pull back, then I would imagine that the IWM is going to do the same. And the setup Monday into Tuesday, or maybe Friday into Monday, that was looking pretty good on the IWM. It's right here where price was holding in the 15-minute time frame, and the Moxie indicator was looking pretty darn good. Like that was really, really nice. But then now what's happening? Well, we're starting to fail the 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicator is now falling back below zero. So we've kind of lost our strength. And a lot of times when I teach people and talk about stuff like this, just because you see a setup doesn't mean that it has to confirm or carry. It can be a good setup for what we see right there, and then something changes with the market, and then it just crashes and burns and doesn't work. So, I can find all sorts of things where it's like, oh yeah, look, there's a double bottom, or there's a move, or there's something, and then it just, fizzles later. And that's just kind of how the market works sometimes. And so we just kind of need to be prepared that for as much as this looked pretty good right there, well, maybe something changes and it's like, nope, I guess not. And so if this continues to work its way down, then I'm going to be looking for the IWM to kind of come back down here and possibly do a double bottom and see where that wants to go. Big picture, though, I do like what is happening with the market. I do think that this is the beginning of something. We're seeing a lot of good things that are setting up on the weekly timeframes, and we did make new highs right back there. And yes, it was a little too much. November, December really got everything overbought, and so we've kind of been working ourselves back down. And the IWM did find some support down here around the weekly 21, but maybe it's not ready right now. Maybe it just kind of needs to take a little bit more sideways before it can finally move up. And that's perfectly fine too, because if you look at something like Airbnb, on a smaller scale, you just have to be prepared that sometimes things need a little bit of rest and digesting. So, look at this. Even Airbnb, it popped up, and what did it do? It went sideways for a few days, several days, before it finally moved up again. And then we can even see here that Airbnb went sideways again before popping up. And so if we look at this, and I guess you could even say Airbnb here did kind of a bigger thing. There's your double bottom that we're talking about coming into the daily 50. And so if we kind of bring that over and we talk about the IWM on a weekly chart, and we bring it into here, it's like, this thing might need to just hang out and digest for quite some time until it can finally go up. So whatever it does, maybe it comes down a little bit, maybe it stays in this box, something like that. It might just go sideways for a while before finally moving up. And that's okay. We just need to be prepared for something like that. Now, another thing that was kind of brought to my attention yesterday is GM. And they had earnings, and you can see that they're doing well. They're popping up. And look what it did. So this is kind of my whole point of, hey, just because something's kind of like not going up isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can see GM had a pretty good move up off of its floor, off of its lows, and then it had to digest that move. And you can see here that that was basically it digesting. And it was easily 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 6 weeks that it kind of just, hung out, really didn't do much. It was just digesting that move. And if you look here on over here on the daily and the hourly, you can kind of see, yes, it pulled back, and then it really just consolidated right there, and then it was earnings, and that helped push it up. So let's see if something like the IWM wants to do that. And even to the SPY, if we come over here and look at this, there were numerous occasions, right here, right there, that the SPY hung out for a little bit, and then a little bit bigger range, but it still hung out until it finally moved up and moved up. And so that's the thing. We just kind of need to be okay with the idea that maybe the IWM is not ready to go up like right now. And if it does pull back, or if it does kind of go sideways and flag and do a double bottom or something like that, it could be perfectly okay. And we just need to keep watching for it. So I'm not going to be playing anything to the short side, but I just going to be prepared to understanding that maybe not everything is ready to go all the time right away, right? I think that's a good thing to kind of understand. Now, on that note, some of the other interesting things. So brighter side, you're mentioning. I was looking at some of the Bitcoin stocks. So let me kind of get into that as well. Brighter side is you're talking about, the hourly 50 on the IWM. Yeah, as I said earlier, I'm not sure if that's going to work. It might need to take a second opportunity. So let's see if it needs to take a little bit of a dip before going back up. And what that would mean is you basically kind of in this box before finally moving up. And that would be fine. That would be a consolidation. And I'll just show you guys another example. Right. Let me put my cursor here so we can see it. Same thing. Like, how about this? What if it just does it in kind of a bigger situation right there? And that could be perfectly okay. So you saw, like before, look at that. It could not hold the hourly 50, did a double bottom, and then launched. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not going to short it, but also maybe it's not ready right now. And don't be surprised if it might need to do a little dip and do a double bottom or something like that to kind of test some support. Okay, so now if we look at some of the Bitcoin stuff, this has been doing a pretty common pattern that I talk about all the time in the Moxie room. And there's more to this explanation, but basically I gave a post, it was either yesterday or the day before, and I said we should expect most of these stocks to pull back to the hourly 50. And they're doing that. So this is panning out exactly like I've been posting and communicating to the Moxie traders and saying, yeah, let's wait for this. Now, what we have to do is, with this coming back to the hourly 50, kind of like what I showed you guys with the IWM, is we just have to see if this is going to start holding, if it's going to move up from there. All right. So we don't know yet. We have to wait. It's still kind of just neutral. And we have the FOMC today. So there's going to be all sorts of craziness that could be happening today. But let's see, Mara, and I know Coin basically did the same thing. Yeah, little pretty small, but just jumped up from there. Riot is another one. Here you go, right to the hourly 50. and I think, there are a bunch of them, but Hive, you can see right there, pulled back to the hourly 50, and BTBT pulling back to the hourly 50. So that's just to kind of name a few of the Bitcoin stocks. And if we look at GBTC, which is the ETF for Bitcoin itself, you can see it did get overbought. And what did it do? All it did is go to the daily 50. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying about the IWM as well, is that I don't really want to be shorting these things, because really they could just come down, find some support, and go right back up. Because this market generally looks pretty good. It just needs to take a little bit of a break. All right, so let's see. Austin, you're looking at KIRK. Kind of reminds me of Kirkland, because no, it is Kirkland. Oh, go figure. Yep, we're up here in Washington, so Kirkland and Costco and all that stuff. I don't know if that's the same company here, if it's related. Maybe you can tell me. I'll look it up after I get off the mic. Yeah, that weekly chart's actually looking pretty good. In fact, that looks a lot like IWM in a way, and that looks a lot like GM. Everything where you had these big moves to the upside, and then look at that, took a little dip, digesting its move. And so let's take a look at the lower time frame. Let me get back over here. And yeah, very much like GM, you could see that yes, it pulled back, but you could have shorted it. But I would have just said, hey, I think this thing's in an uptrend, and really I'm just waiting for it to pull back and find some support, and look what it did. And as soon as it came into that support, it jumped up. So now here's another thing. This is why I love the Moxie indicator. And if you guys don't have it, here are 2 good reasons why you should have the Moxie indicator. Number 1, this is what I call a trampoline move. Price below the 50, but the Moxie indicator above 0. Trampoline move. And that's exactly like, if you imagine that the 50 SMA is like the trampoline. If you guys ever had one as a kid, I definitely did. And you can jump on it, and it's like a spring loaded, and it shoots you right back up like that. So that's why I just kind of came up with the term trampoline move. And then the other one, here's your Moxie price trigger. And in fact, doesn't this look like Airbnb, and doesn't this look like the IWM, where it got back up, flagged, and then started to run the hourly 50? So that's looking pretty good. In fact, that is looking like the IWM just from Monday, because yesterday it started to pull back. And yeah, the 15-minute Moxie indicator starting to look good. So as long as this can continue to hold these moving averages, yeah, KIRK is actually looking pretty good. Let's see, it's a home goods store. Okay, well, my mom loves Home Goods, which is a home goods store. And I will have to look into KIRK a little bit more, because yes, that one is looking pretty good, at least from a start of things. All right, and then let's see, brighter side, we're looking at FUBO. I don't know if that one's really doing, yeah, FUBO's not doing too much. I've been watching this for a while. I think I took a quick trade on it. It got out, I don't know, a little small gain. It's just, I don't know. It's still having troubles kind of finding any kind of support, maybe as it's coming in here to the weekly area, but we're going to have to see this thing shape up on the lower time frames, and it's not quite there. I see some possibilities. I'll just take a mark here. Right through there. We'll see if that can kind of do something, but it's got a little bit of work to do. So yeah, nothing yet. Just kind of keep an eye on it. CCL. Oh, actually, these things have pulled back more than I thought. I was looking at RCL a while ago. Yeah, RCL is still way up there. That would be challenging, I think, to want to get, especially with earnings. So I'd wait after earnings. CCL doesn't look quite as good. I mean, which kind of pullback is better, and a ascending flag, or a pullback like a cup and handle? I don't know. So I think it's interesting that those are different, that one of them kind of wedging to the upside and one of them's pulling back, as far as those 2 cruise lines. So possibility, yeah, it's pulling back into an uptrending daily 50. We're starting to see some divergence, sure. But again, I would give it just a little bit more confirmation to make sure that this thing can actually get going the way it wants. And I would imagine RCL would have to do well on their earnings, because if they don't do well and the market for whatever reason decides to go down, I don't see CCL necessarily going up right away. And maybe if RCL goes up, then CCL can go, but it's feeling like RCL might be a little up there. Yeah, it looks a little extended. So I personally would wait until RCL has its earnings to then decide what to do about CCL, since they're related. And then yeah, Open Open is on my list for sure. You can see, yep, there's the Moxie price trigger. But at this point this morning, I'm going to wait and see how the FOMC comes out because, you know, we got Google that just got crunched on earnings. This is why I don't like to trade earnings. It's just an absolute roll of the dice. You never know. It was overbought. You know, it was pretty extended, very overbought, and maybe this isn't the worst thing. Maybe this actually ends up being a buy the dip, but hard to be in there if you were in it and having to deal with that. I would just have to say I don't see anything wrong with this yet as far as these time frames. It really did just pull back to support. It was overbought, and it could be just now closer to the daily 50. So it might end up being a buy the dip situation, but I'm not going to be buying that dip today. Oh, nice, Evita. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. I always appreciate you guys. Let me know how it's working out for you. And then, yeah, Brighter Side talking about some of the RKT, the mortgage stuff, Redfin. Yeah, I think that these things generally are going to be doing pretty well because I think interest rates are going to still come down. I mean, that's what the talk of the town. Now, they may not come down now or March. I don't know. Maybe it comes down a little bit later, and we'll have to see how the market cares about that. But yeah, it does seem to me like the message is that the interest rates are going to come down. It's just kind of a question of when. And you can see something like Rocket. So my mortgage is actually with Rocket. And so, yeah, I'm almost thinking maybe if I buy them, I can start making some money back from them, get all those fees and everything back, right? So it was overbought right there. And like I said, with the IWM and some of these other names, they're just pulling back. This actually looks really, really good. And all I've been doing is, as I've been watching these, is figuring out, okay, when is a good place to get in? And you can see I've already started marking this up. And the reason I started marking it up is because it came into support and it started to hold more support. And I just want to make sure that these things actually work. I need to make sure that they actually continue to go up and that this isn't just a bounce in what really wants to be a little bit more of a downtrend. That's always a possibility. Yeah, and then Redfin, Open. Redfin and Open are looking pretty darn similar, but same thing. Pull back to support, starting to hold some support. And if these are going to work, we really just have to make sure that they actually start working. But, like the IWM, we don't know yet if price is going to hold the hourly 50 or if it's still going to need to dip one more time. Snow. Yeah, I think this one kind of got run over a little bit with the whole Google. Amazon is down a little bit too. Big picture, I do like these things. It's really kind of hard to argue that this doesn't look good. This actually, I would say, from these higher time frame charts, these look good because look, it's basically making new highs. And what I could do is actually let's see if we can put a trend line right about there. Yeah. And what I would say is there is an area. So there was some support, there was some resistance, and now you're acting as support. And so what I want to see is over the course of time, can this hold? And, like, hey, maybe the market's a little bit tired right now. We got FOMC, we got Google that's down. We got some of the bigger stocks that are down. And as I said, that just the overall market it was pretty stretched to the upside. So maybe a name like this is not just ready to run right now, but I also don't see anything wrong with it yet. It might still need a flag. It still might need a dip a little bit, but from like a higher time frame perspective, this looks pretty good, and I think it just needs kind of time in order to get itself figured out. Now, trying to get exactly where that is, well, we're not entirely sure. It for now, not holding the hourly 50. Maybe it's holding the daily 21. I don't know. It did a really nice double bottom off of the daily 50 and moved up, but right now it needs to digest probably the rest of its gains. So big picture, good. Near picture, it's got to figure itself out. And Goose, I've kept a casual eye on that one also. And the thing about Goose, it's just like I just don't know. I don't know if this is still the environment where I want to go chasing these bottom fishers entirely. So if it does work, I know you're seeing what you're seeing. You see that elf shoe right there. That's a pretty nice elf shoe. And it just has to work. But you got earnings coming up, so personally, I'd wait till after earnings. It is holding the daily 50 nicely, and it did just hold the hourly 50 as well. So yes, from a chart perspective, looking okay. There might be some baggage overhead, and so just don't know how great this might be. It could be awesome, but not sure. Let's wait till after earnings. And then, Andrew, if we look at WIT, I was thinking, isn't this Wipro? I don't know what this is. I thought this was actually oil, but I might be thinking of a different ticker. Yeah, look at that, running right smack into the 30 ATR and the 200 and the 50. So might have a little bit of trouble right there. And then, yeah, I had jumped up on earnings. Apparently it was way too much. And now it probably just needs to settle in. So the question I think is going to become like, where does it find support? It's kind of far away from the daily 50. So it might need a little bit of more time. But if it can eventually get over this moving average and this moving average and the Moxie indicator turn up, good. But for now, it kind of seems like it wants to rest a little bit more. So I don't see anything that I can say too much about on that one. Yeah, Austin, that's kind of what I was thinking. So there are too many good names out there to try to pick the bottom, like for Goose, something like that. There are a lot of names that are actually in legitimate uptrends, like even, look at GM. That thing looks like it wants to get moving, and we have some other ones. And yeah, Robbie, even Snap. I mean, amazing. Like, how did this thing finally start coming up and out like this? So yeah, I've been watching this one. Again, I totally did not expect Snapchat to have a big move like that, but it did. So now this is pretty much on my radar. And obviously I don't want to go buy it up here, so I've been waiting. And the interesting thing is that this has really just gone sideways. I think that that generally is a sign of strength. The fact that it's only been going sideways while it's consolidating and trying to let the moving averages catch up. But I also don't see an entry yet. So Robbie, I have a feeling that I would not do anything right now because there doesn't look like there's anything to do. And then we have earnings coming up in probably the next week or two. And so I personally would wait till after earnings just to see what happens. Okay. And then once earnings are done, then I can assess and decide what to do about that. Oh, and then SMCI, I mean, this thing is just like sheer FOMO MOMO kind of thing. I was just on the mic yesterday. We had some of our own people. I mean, I wish some of I was in the options room right now, because when traders were asking me about this yesterday, I said, in my world, I need price to stay above the 15-minute 50 in order for price to continue to go up. Well, look what happened this morning. Right there, perfectly tested and tapped the 15-minute 50 and then shot up. So for now, as long as that continues, you're looking pretty good. And then the next line in the sand is basically you need price to stay over the hourly 50. But you got to understand it's getting a little frothy. This is a little bit hard to continue to chase. Okay, so for as great as this has been, you got to understand you are in outer space, and there are very few points of reference to be able to really understand where this can go and where there's resistance. And you got to be a little bit careful at this point. You can't keep thinking that this is going to go up forever. So it's been doing really, really well for now. It's respecting these lower time frames, but just kind of keep it on a tight leash if you're going to be getting into something like that. Ravi, I'm probably also not into those things. So XLE a little bit. I look at this one casually, but you can see it's really not doing much. So again, not. I just can't see much. There's a little bit of divergence, but nothing's quite holding. So XLE is just not something I really do. And it's healthcare, Humana. I don't trade these things either. They don't really they move, but they don't really trend. They don't move the way I need. And you can see clearly Humana is like falling off a cliff. So no, I don't see anything to do here. And this is not in an uptrend yet, and I have no idea if this is the bottom. So there's nothing for me to do here. There's nothing to do. So yeah, I just don't trade these stocks. You can kind of see why it's not my thing. XLE, same thing, just not my thing. They're not really doing much. And so I stay away from them. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. We can't touch all the water. We can't trade every stock. And we just need to be reasonable about what we do expose ourselves to and try and find the ones that really work for us and move best. All right, guys? Well, remember, come check things out. I'm going to be posting more on Twitter. I guess we call it X. But yeah, we've had some pretty good stuff here. I guess we got the kind of very meta. We can see myself talking while I talk. That's interesting. But yeah, let's see how things continue to shape up. We got FOMC today. Looks like that's trending a bit. And then, yeah, ready for the shake and bake. Who knows? Monster truck rally. We'll see where that goes. All right, guys. Thanks again, and we'll see how that settles in. Take care.